Hello, welcome back. This week we're going to look at God's plan. For I know the plan I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for calamity, to give you a future and a hope. Jeremiah 29:11. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you may prove what the will of God is, that which is good and acceptable and perfect. Romans 12:2. And now we know that God causes all things to work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. Romans 8:28. So, can we know God's plan? What is God's plan? I think back to when we were expecting the joy, the excitement, the plans. The plans. Well, he planned everything about how we would prepare for him, how we would raise him, how he would act. But then he was born. And we believed, as the parents, we were in control of his behavior and his destiny. What we found was our plans had to keep changing because we found that he didn't follow our plan. And then we learned to let go and found that the only real plan was to build a relationship. We talk about God's plan for our lives. We look at this as a definitive linear plan, like a blueprint. This follows that. But what if his plan is more like what we have for our children? The plans we have for them are for welfare, not for harm. The best plans change, adapt, develop from the changes, not in spite of the changes. He tells us his plans for our welfare, that if we follow it, we will be blessed, we'll be happy. He tells us everything that happens, he can make into good. He does not say uncomfortable things will not come, but we will work together, and even those will work for the good as we love him. So, what if God's plan is more creative than linear? Is it possible that God actually allows for our failure? I think sometimes we are harder on ourselves than because of our failures. I think, like us, with our children, He allows for our failures because they are learning times for us. We learn about ourselves. We learn about Him. We learn about His strength. We learn about His dependability. We learn to grow together because of the failures. Do we love our children less because of their failures? No, we don't. It's about the relationship. When our children fail, don't we don't do they don't do as we want them to. And they come to us. We work through the challenges and grow together because of the challenges. We find the relationship is more important than what we planned for them. We create a new path, a closer path, when we allow these challenges can even work to the good of the relationship. I believe what God's plan is more like a pathway. As we walk together along the path and commune together, we grow closer. As we grow closer, we create a better pathway, a What makes it a better pathway is the learned relationship. Can we picture God's plan for us as this type of pathway rather than as a blueprint? And why do I have it such a hard time with this concept of a more creative plan? The concept of a pathway rather than a blueprint makes us uncomfortable because I think we have a hard time seeing God as who is in control in this concept. I think when we take the time to look at it closer at this idea, we see it's just the opposite. It's more like a gardener who makes a garden, who plans the garden, who makes a garden, and then invites people into the garden. And there's pathways that go around beautiful flower beds and shrubs and all kinds of designs. And there's pathways that don't go anywhere. There's pathways that go off into the wilds. And the gardener knows where all these pathways go. But the visitors have to learn. And it's easy to get lost in the garden if you don't follow the gardener's markings of which way to go. So if the garden's big and takes time. But the more you grow and learn about the garden, the more you learn about the gardener. And if you get lost, you call the gardener is there. There's someone to help you find your way out. I think some people have trouble with this because they want somebody who tells them, do this, do that, do this, rather than someone who lets them, encourages them to come and be more creative in themselves. Someone who's more in control doesn't have to make you do things. So I challenge you to examine the concept of a pathway maker versus a blueprint maker. And remember, God's ultimate plan is about relationship. Thank you.